Hello everyone, and welcome to All Things Medicare. Tonight is our second part in our Veterans and Medicare programming. Seated to my left is one of the owners of Statewide, Cheryl Braswell. 20-year veteran seated to his left, Jeremy Crawford, our specialist, who actually talks with the veterans, answers questions they may have. Veterans, we couldn't do it without you. Our country, everything evolves around you, men and women such. So we hope the questions that have already come in to ask that Jeremy and Cheryl are going to address this evening will respond to some of those ideas that I know you had sitting on the couch last time and just didn't get off to give us a call. But tonight's a good show. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. And let's start with Jeremy. Jeremy, is there any particular questions that you may have that have been received that maybe our viewing audience would like to have an answer to?
Well, you hit the nail on the head, Joey, when you said that we've gotten a lot of questions. We've had people call in, have them stop by the office, and with the upcoming annual enrollment period and trying to figure out what is the best path for them to take, we've gotten some pretty interesting questions, and the one I wanted to start off with tonight is kind of revisiting a question from the last time, but it seems like it needs more clarification. And one of the gentlemen asked me, he says, is VA credible coverage for Part B as it relates to Medicare?
Great question.
And so we talked to him for a little while about what it is he's doing, what coverage he has, and what services he gets through the VA, and why it might not be enough. And the most logical answer to that question is that the Part B is not credible. VA's coverage is not credible for Part B, so that he needs to consider having the right coverage through a Part B plan. You guys might be able to explain it a little bit more in detail, but the basic idea is even though he's covering his needs now, should he ever come off of that, or should he ever need to address coverage through Medicare for Part B related services,
Absolutely.
He's going to get hit for a late enrollment fee if he's not having that in place now.
Yes.
Did I hit that right?
On that, you did great. On that, Cheryl, you want to address what Part A, it's on your red, white, and blue card, your Medicare card. All of our veterans, most have it, whether you have A or B. Cheryl, you want to address what Part A is and Part B is on that?
Yes. Medicare two-part program, Part A, Part B, as is listed on your Medicare card. Part A is, think about it this way, it's the building, it's the hospital, and the things that happen in the hospital. Part B is going to your doctor's office, and the services that he provides, that physician provides to you. So that's your super simple Reader's Digest version of Medicare Parts A and B. And then there are a whole host of other parts behind that, different programs that, depending on your situation, that you may need to be enrolled in.
So talking about Part B now and Part A, as Jeremy and Cheryl just did, you may have questions. Cheryl, is there a phone number dealing with that Part A and Part, as we're talking about, B, Alpha, Bravo, that they can call in and get a question answered directly from you or Jeremy?
Yes. Yes.
Can you give that number, please?
Yes, sir. I believe it's also on the screen right now. Our direct line in the office main line is 252-316-8166. And you can call that number, and y'all, you can call that number anytime. We have an answering service that picks up, if this is after hours or we don't happen to be able to answer that line at the time. So please leave a message, with any question you may have. And you can, if you want to come by the office, we have a sign on the front door that says, if you've been coughing, don't come in. Call us and we'll talk to you.
Jeremy, in tagging that, we have the number for Statewide and Cheryl. How would they, you being a vet and having the experience of what our audience is this evening, how would they get in touch with you for a question and answer?
Well, if you can't reach me through the office number that Cheryl just provided, my direct number, and what I think really makes me stand out as somebody who's trying to work towards helping you, is that you can call my cell phone number. It is 252-999-0097. Now, like Cheryl, I'm not going to answer it at 2 in the morning, but I am available at that phone number all the time. Again, it's 252-999-0097.
And we're also, if you do want to come by the office, you can call and set up an appointment. And our location is at the corner of Country Club Road and Hunter Hill Road. We're actually 880 Country Club Road.
What would be a
our
landmark
address.
close to your office?
We are across the street from the Pizza Inn.
Pizza Inn,
Yeah,
yep.
didn't want to make sure I got that one right.
Outstanding.
So if you come out the front door of the Pizza Inn, look to your left, and I call them the business condominiums that sit across the street, we're on the far right-hand end, closest to the intersection, the very last unit.
Cheryl, you said you had a lot of questions that had actually come in. Is there one you would like to propose now that we can get an answer from Jeremy, or, sir?
It's, the thing I wanted to sort of emphasize is, when you're listening, we're talking about different things, and you may have something else on your mind other than what we've talked about. So, while you're sitting there at home, jot down the questions that you've got, and then, call the office number. Just, say, hey, my name is John Smith. My number is, I had a couple of questions related to, the veterans side of the equation, or just the civilian side of the equation. And we'll call you back, and then be a little more relaxed atmosphere, and, address your question and get the information that you
Jeremy,
need.
would there be a series of questions that our veterans, since this program is directed to that this evening, where Cheryl handles 98% of civilians? Would our audience have a question that you may kind of lead into, or, because Cheryl's right, even if it's civilians, but the reason Jeremy's here this evening is to address our veterans. And things that Cheryl and myself cannot respond to, the questions that you may have sitting there, the only way we know that we can help. And we are that authoritative group, hence the reason Jeremy's here. But is there something, Jeremy, that you can, from being your background, lend to our veterans to let them warm up to us, knowing that we are the ones that they would call in this time of need, dealing with Medicare and what they currently have?
Absolutely. We understand that trying to get through the maze that is the Medicare process and the Medicare enrollment, and then again, the Medicare changes that might be needed from year to year, that's very complex. We understand it's confusing. We have to work together a lot with our resources to constantly stay on top of what is going on, what's coming up in the new year. And so we understand the challenges you might be going through. We're trying to sift through the muddy water that is Medicare.
Yeah.
And so the way we try to stand out and the way we try to service our clients and our veterans is that we stay up to date on the information, and we try to do what we tell you we're going to do. Because along with being complex and confusing, you have to be able to trust the source that you're getting information from. And when you tell me personal information or information about your medications you might be taking, you have to know that I'm going to keep that information confidential, and then I'm going to treat you with the same respect that you're giving me. So that's what I would put out there to the veterans, is we are that source of information, but most importantly, we want to show you that we can be trusted and that we know what we're talking about, because we stay on top of the new changes. And the only way to see that is to actually speak with us, interact with us, and I'm sure they'll learn what it is we're talking about.
You're exactly right,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Is there another question either one of you gentlemen would like to go ahead? Because I'm sure you've got a ton there.
I do.
And thank you, again, I'm interrupting these guys, but thank you for calling in. It means the world of us for that idea of communication between you and these two gentlemen right here. Jeremy?
I had one. It was another question brought up by a soldier veteran that's in the area over in Edgecombe County. He is a veteran retiree, so he gets TRICARE. He's not quite old enough to be in the CHAMP VA class, if you want to call it a class. So he gets TRICARE just like I do. And he's 64 now, moving into that 65 target. And he wanted to know, his question was, as a veteran, how are the benefits through Medicare different for me than they are for non-vets? What makes it different?
That's a great question.
And what I told him, I said, without understanding his entire background and what he needs from a medical point of view and the medications that he takes, I think the shortest, most accurate answer was to say that veterans are allowed to do some things within Medicare that non-veterans cannot. Specifically speaking, if you were to put together a combination of coverages, VA service, either using TRICARE for Life or going through some sort of a Medicare Advantage plan, you can piecemeal together the right coverage to cover wherever there may be gaps in your VA coverage, your VA service.
that, yeah.
And that's not something a lot of non-veterans have access to. And so when he learned that information, he found out that there was things he just did not know, but that he could add to his current coverage. He set an appointment right away to come talk to us where we could learn about his individual needs and then give him informed responses.
Yes.
So, but that was one thing that stood out for me, is the veterans have access to things that some non-veterans don't.
Yes.
So,
And, one thing also, veterans especially, keep in mind, a lot of these programs that we can layer on top of what you have are usually at no cost or extremely, extremely low cost
yeah, thank you.
to the vets.
Speaking, Jeremy hit on something for our viewing audience. I know if you turn on, there is all of the political ads. Oh my gracious, I don't need to tell you about that now. But in between, interspersed between those political ads, you're going to see a quarterback talking about a particular product. You're going to see, and I'm talking about Medicare now. What am I leading up to? It's a product called Medicare Advantage. Jeremy just mentioned it. A lot of folks have no idea, and then there's a lot of folks that think they know it all. I'm encouraging you to pick up the phone. I'm going to briefly touch on it for just a minute and then throw it back to Cheryl. Medicare Advantage. Think of health insurance at your job. Co-pays for your doctor. How about your specialist? How about the emergency room? How about a deductible? How about a max out of pocket? These are things that are covered in the Medicare side called a Medicare Advantage. And that's what Mr. Jeremy was talking about. There are layers that we can able to do what? See what is best for your particular need. And Cheryl, that's a situation you were talking about even earlier today about a Medicare Advantage and how it would fit and work in with, of course, Jeremy and the veterans.
Yeah, and also, please keep in mind when you have an appointment set to come and talk with us, write down your questions before you get into the office. And that way we'll make sure and cover everything. And then write down any question that you might have. There is no wrong question.
How about your medication? Will they need to bring that in as well?
Yes. I mean, depending on what we do for them.
Yes, sir.
We need to be able to see the medications. And I will tell you one thing that will make it a little easier on you. If you deal with a local pharmacy, go by there and ask them to give you a printout of your medications.
Is that who you're purchasing your drugs through? Okay.
And that will give me the exact information. And the reason I say the exact information, I was working with a husband and wife today, and we were working on the phone, and she misread some of the information on a couple of the bottles, and because when I ran the quote for them, I was kind of surprised because I was familiar with the medication. I'm like, this seems awfully high. And I called her back, and we had to kind of quiz her a little bit to make sure we had the right details, because the particular bottle she had was the label was about to come off of it.
Understood.
And that type of thing. So if you go to the pharmacy, they will give you a clean printout that gives the medication and the exact dosage that you're taking, and that makes a difference.
Does that work also with you, Jeremy, in dealing with the veterans? The same thing, if they call you, they need to have, of course, the questions that you're asking, naturally, and the trust, because it all has to maintain between you and the client relationship, of what Jeremy was talking about. But with a veteran, is it the same thing?
It has a lot of similarities. The formularies aboard the base, when they're getting VA services, they have a list, just like most of the carriers have as a list for formularies. But it's a different process. And the basic concept still applies, though. When we go to meet, if you'll have all the information about what it is you're trying to accomplish, what medications you might be taking, and what they are, because the precise name does make a big difference, then we can help answer questions related to their situation.
Understood.
So it really is, and a lot has to do with where they live. Do they get access to that formulary that's aboard the base, even without all the other concerns that go along with having the right coverages?
Understood. And that leads in with the Medicare Advantage, what you're talking about in the counties that you live in. Is that correct? There are different plans, Cheryl, for different counties for a Medicare Advantage?
Yes.
Am I right on that?
Absolutely.
If you'd like to touch a base on that before we go to break.
It depends on your physical address. We'll always ask you that your address, your zip code, and also who your primary care physician is, to make sure that that person is in the network that that product takes care of.
So that's where it's key. They want to know what county you're in, if I'm correct on this,
Yep.
and the doctor that you have, that you are in that coverage area.
Yes.
I understand.
And we can track it down. If I have that physician's name, then we can go through the program and be able to look them up and see if they are a doctor.
So you and Jeremy have
Yes.
access to all of the
Right.
doctors
Yes.
and what in the areas
Yes.
to convey that to the listening audience and the clients, of course, in the future. Jeremy? Yes, sir.
Well, the one thing I would add before we go to break is that this is also the right time of the year for the veterans to look at their Medicare options very closely, because our window for making changes is coming up as well. It comes up around mid-November and ends in December as well. So this is the right time to put the right square pegs
So the
in the right square
veterans
holes.
have a time frame, didn't mean to interrupt, but that's a hot topic.
Right.
They have please elaborate on that.
We do. We have a window, and
Oh, my gracious.
you have one of those moments where you draw a blank.
Yeah.
The date on that first start of the date on that window is drawing a blank right now.
Is it November 7th or anywhere in
It's
that?
mid-November to mid-December, and I'll certainly correct that information from my Facebook page. But we have access, and what my family and I need to do this year is we need to see whether or not keeping one of our family members on Select is the right choice, or whether or not we need to put more of the family members on Select. For example, one of the carriers took over a few years ago, and when they did, and they started giving military veterans more access to modifying and hand-picking the exact plan they wanted,
Interesting.
it started opening up a lot of opportunities. One, we reduced cost, and so I love that. However, it scaled back the geographical area that was known as Prime, where you could go to a PCM, a primary care manager, have all your care coordinated through them, and you were able to save on costs, but pay a little bit on the premium.
Understood.
Now, with that geographical footprint being much smaller and closer to the military treatment facility, for example, Seymour Johnson, now that forces a lot of veterans into TRICARE Select. So this is the time of the year for us to look at that and see if my dental, my vision, and my medical coverage is all set up the right way.
Are you also able to assist them with this
Absolutely.
situation?
Absolutely.
Then I encourage you again, for the third time, give Cheryl, give Jeremy a call with your questions. It seems funny, but it's not. There's not a silly question out there. If you're sitting on your couch tonight wondering how am I going to take care of if I get the common cold, if I get the flu during this upcoming winter season, am I covered? And that's the individuals to my left that you're actually going to be talking to, Cheryl and Jeremy. Make sure you give them a call. Cheryl, before we go, and it looks like we're going to have a break here in just a second, is anything you'd like to add? Because we've got a couple of good points coming after the break, but anything you'd like to add going into break?
And we're going to talk about
AEP, the annual enrollment
Okay,
period,
all right.
and how that affects
Yeah,
the veterans as
yeah.
well as civic. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I cannot emphasize enough, when you have the opportunity to sit down and speak with Jeremy or myself, questions, please have your questions ready. And if you want us to look at something that you already have and give you a second opinion on it, I mean, there's not a charge, for any consultations that we do for you. We'll sit down with you and get the right information for you so that you're able to make the best decision for yourself, for you and your spouse in the Medicare situation and with the veterans, the whole family, in some of the situations. So please write down any questions and assume nothing. Ask the questions. Don't assume that you already have something taken care of just for your own peace of mind. Let us give you the second opinion, because if you've got something good, I've had plenty of clients where I'll take care of A and C for them, and B and D are done elsewhere, because what you have right now, do not change it.
Outstanding
take care of,
information.
let it be. Let keep what you have
Outstanding
in that area.
information from both of you,
And,
and we're going to be back right after this commercial break. Stay tuned. We've got some great things coming, AEP in particular.
Yeah. Think you may be eligible for Medicare? You probably have more questions than answers right now. Statewide Insurers Group, All Things Medicare, can help you with that. We can provide the guidance and the answers that you need to get the benefits you may be eligible for. Don't let this time of uncertainty jeopardize your eligibility for your Medicare benefits. Remember, relationships matter. Call Statewide Insurers Group today for the answers that you need now. 316-8166.
You know, the quickest thing about doing a 30-minute show, it flies by.
Yeah.
Sitting here now, and the directors in the back are saying, "Are y'all ready?" And we're sitting up here, "No, not really. No, not really." But we are back, and we have some great information as far as the AEP. You've probably heard that on the TV commercials we were talking about. They're everywhere speaking about Medicare. Now, Jeremy alluded to a point earlier about dates for veterans. I'm going to throw it to Jeremy now and let him just pick right up on that segue.
Thank you. This is a good tie-in, and I was able to clarify the dates. I didn't want to put out the wrong info before. But the TRICARE open season, to make changes to your current coverage, whether you end up in Prime or you end up in Select or some other combination, is from November 9th to December 14th. Those dates sound pretty similar because they're right in line with the annual enrollment period for Medicare, which is starting tomorrow, all the way to December 7th. So the dates are very similar, and I believe there was a bit of a design in that setting of dates. So that is the window for making changes to TRICARE Prime, and it's known as the, changes related to TRICARE, and it's known as the open season.
Understood. So it's a critical time for you sitting on that couch right now to give Jeremy a call. And he's giving you the numbers. We'll go back over that website later as he was speaking about. Cheryl, I think you were talking about even following up on the AEP and how we begin, of what we're going to go into between October 15th and December 7th. What do you make changes during that time that everybody's talking about?
Sure. Good question. During the annual enrollment period, the October 15th through December 7th, there's two main areas that you want to make sure you're taking care of. One, if you need to make changes in your prescription drug plan, that's your window to do that. And be cognizant. I mean, most people are paying attention to their prescription drug plans when they get dinged at the counter at the pharmacy, and instead of it being $25, it's $89.72 this time. Once you set up a plan, for example, let's just say that you turn 65 in March, and we set up a drug plan for you. And in July, the doctor changed your prescriptions. And all of a sudden, it's costing you a whole lot more at the counter than it did, 2 or 3 months earlier. Unfortunately, you have to stay with the plan you have until this annual enrollment period comes up. But there are a couple of things you can do to ease the pain. I talked with my dad about every other month about how much he had to pay at the window. Why am I paying that this time? It wasn't that much last time. And I remind him, and this applies to everybody, when you go to that counter there in the pharmacy, ask them, hey, are there any coupons, any manufacturer's discounts y'all know about that I can take care of, or I can use? And my dad usually ends up getting something. Yeah, because I tell him, Dad, don't pass it up, man. Ask him. And also, if he has a prescription that is costly, you can call the manufacturer You can call it the pharmacy company and ask them, is there a program y'all have in-house that will provide a discount? And there are. The plans are out there. I had 2 last week that we were able to help out. They had been existing clients for 2 or 3 years, and they had a change in their medications, and it was, it was expensive. It was very expensive. And I just literally, while I had them on the phone, I started, looking a couple of places up and found 2 that I had, they had to make the phone call. They had to make the call in to because of HIPAA regulations, and fortunately, we're able to get a pretty significant discount on one of those medications. And it's just a phone call. They literally were enrolled, in that program by the manufacturer in less than 5 minutes.
So it does go to show it's worthwhile to get off of that couch, sofa, riding in your car, and ask the questions to the people that know at Statewide. And that's going to be Jeremy Crawford for the veterans, 20-year retired, Cheryl Braswell. As we're looking at and coming to a close, it has been a quick 30 minutes. We encourage you to do what? Pick up that phone, email, text, do whatever. But we will close with one last thing on AEP. Talk with someone that you trust, like these 2 gentlemen to my left. Ask the proper questions. If you go to prescription drug, PDP, prescription drug plans, there's Good RX. Cheryl alluded to it. There is the manufacturer. Jeremy, is there anything you want to add as far as the veterans to bring it to a close, sir?
Just one last question. I get this asked quite a bit, is what do I need to bring when we show up? Other than asking the right questions, what information should I bring? We started to allude to it when we talked about medication lists, but is there anything else that could possibly help us give them the best direction?
From a civilian standpoint, I need to know what your situation is today. Like you may be 67 years old and still working. That makes a difference.
Gotcha.
That can make a significant difference for you. So we just need to understand, and you got to remember, I don't know you. I don't know what your situation is. So please, we'll sit there and have that conversation about what you've got going on.
So the more information you can bring and acquire, that personal information stays personal. Regulations abound on all of us. But we want to encourage you and thank you for tuning in to Statewide. All things Medicare. The questions that were not asked tonight will be picked up on another show. We thank you for tuning in. God bless. Have a blessed week. We thank you.
Amen.
Good evening.